More on that BPL report on the termination of the executive board in 2018, the former prime minister giving an emotional speech, and a group of women protesting against mistreatment at PMH. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tyler Simonet with your JCN News for this Monday, October 25th. It's great having you with us. Purchase orders worth tens of millions of dollars, missing documentation, and proper signatures. This is the latest coming out of a BPL report on the termination of the executive board in 2018. Our Leah Cooper has more.
Back in 2018, the Minnis administration hired FDI Consulting to conduct an investigation off the heels of the termination of BPL's executive board, a termination steeped in controversy. JCN News understands that the report has been in the government's possession since November of last year, and why it hasn't been released to the public remains a mystery. That report, obtained by JCN News, shows that purchase orders worth millions of dollars were found to have lacked proper documentation and proper approval. In fact, in 7 cases, documentation such as executive summaries or proof of competitive bidding were missing or not provided to FDI for the purchase orders. The report says if such documentations does not exist, these cases may represent more serious deviations. In one instance, a purchase order for a company by the name of Sancon Contracting Limited, valued at $230,860, lacked an executive summary and evidence of tendering. The report also states that another purchase order for a company by the name of ProGuard Limited, valued at $48,725, lacked evidence of competitive bidding. The report says that while these missing documents do not necessarily indicate any policy violations occurred, their absence prevented FDI from making such an assessment. Now, in another instance, the report points out a purchase order in the amount of $1,310,688, and it contains signatures of the chairman, CEO, CFO, and division head, but none from the COO. Another, for $150,000, contains signatures from the CEO, COO, and the division head, but none from the CFO. The firm also noted that the Power Giant's internal audit department told FDI that it wasn't able to locate service or sales contracts for the vast majority of the POs in FDI's sample. FDI adds that the presence or absence of a contract separate from the purchase order itself was not a focus of its review because the POs serve as contracts and no separate vendor agreements are used. The firm also said that BPL CEO Whitney Hasty explained that separate contracts were not required when POs go through the approval process and the purchase is not subject to tender. In the power company's internal audit report back in April 2019, it found that BPL paid Sancon over $400,000 during a 1-year period with no contract in place and no evidence of tendering. BPL's internal audit department also recommended that the company entered into a contract with Sancon. The report adds that Executive Director Hugh Patrick Rollins, referred to as Rollins in the report, says that Sancon's engagement had been approved by the board in November 2017 and that services were facilitated by way of several purchase orders. The full report's expected to be tabled in the House of Assembly on Wednesday. Reporting for JCN News, I'm Leah Cooper.
Former Prime Minister and official opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis giving a tearful and apologetic speech at the Free National Movement's 50th anniversary church service on Sunday. Dr. Minnis, who was visibly emotional, pausing at times, told Free National Movement supporters that it was an honor and privilege to serve as Prime Minister. In what may be one of his last speeches as leader of the party, he asks FNMs to forgive him for his mistakes as leader, while adding that he's not perfect and never will be.
As a former Prime Minister, and whatever role is assigned to me, I will support the work of the opposition. To advocate on behalf of the Bahamian people and to hold the government accountable.
On Friday past, Dr. Minnis announced that he would not be seeking renomination for leadership at the party's upcoming convention in November. He pledged, however, that he's committed to the party.
I have been an FNM from my youth. I have no other political home or affiliation. I will remain loyal and faithful to the Free National Movement and its values.
Church of God of Prophecy East Street Tabernacle was the venue for the FNMs church service and was filled with supporters, along with past and present FNM leaders, deputy leaders, chairmen, as well as the Torchbearers Association. Pastor of the church, Bishop Hulam Hanna, charged the party to not do any in-house fighting to destroy the party.
Your work in general is yet to be fully completed. Therefore, pick yourself up and go forward and do the people's business as an official, united opposition. You get no brownie points for division. You get no brownie point for infighting. You get no accolades and acclaim for infighting. Get together as a combined loyal opposition and do the work of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
In the party's 50 years of existence, it has served as the government of the Bahamas from 1992 to 2002 and 2007 to 2012 under the leadership of former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham and from 2017 to 2021 under Dr. Hubert Minnis. Former Minister of Health Renwood Wells got frank with JCN News reporters on Sunday at the Free National Movement's 50th anniversary church service. The minister responding to claims made by the Progressive Liberal Party government and Minister of Health and Wellness that the former government forgot to order more vaccines for the country. Mr. Wells contends that all the new Minister of Health and Wellness and the PLP government has to do is manage the pandemic, adding that the previous administration left everything in place so that the country is able to manage the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic.
I believe we may have spent somewhere in the area maybe of $5 or $6 million. I have to go back and check because the price of the vaccine fluctuated. You know, Israel paid $30 a dose for Pfizer. The United States was paying around $20 a dose for Pfizer. I believe we may have paid $20 for Pfizer. For the 57,300 doses would have been around $1 million, so we paid for that. Last year we also had put down an initial down payment with the WHO, and I believe we may have paid probably $3 or $4 million for the AstraZeneca. So we would have, but it all depended on what the price was that the WHO was charging.
Just last week, Minister Darville told reporters that with the former administration forgetting to apply for more Pfizer vaccines, it pushed the Bahamas back. Meantime, based on the daily COVID-19 report by health officials, COVID-19 cases are trending down. Mr. Wells says it completely reflects on the Minnis-led administration's work.
I think the nation would remember that back in July and August, we said that by the time of the general election, the numbers of COVID would come down in the country. We knew what the data was saying. We knew with our rate of vaccination how many Bahamians would have been vaccinated. We knew that based on the work that we were doing with contact tracing, with providing PPEs for persons inside the health sector, understanding what the science was and the science of COVID, that based on the incubation period, that by the time the 16th rolled around, nationally, the numbers would come down.
The former minister went on to say that the confirmed cases are trending downward because the Free National Movement procured a number of vaccines. Since March of this year, more than 255,000 total vaccines have been administered, and that some 127,000 are fully vaccinated with either Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, or Pfizer. The minister also revealing how much money was spent on vaccines during his term as Minister of Health.
I held probably 30, almost 40 press conferences over the 14 months that I was Minister of Health, intimating and telling the nation exactly at every point in time what we were doing, why we were doing it, and what they were to expect from us as an administration. And as I said, what we would have said has come to fruition, whether it's bed space, in terms of the built out of South Beach, of PMH, of the RAN, whether it was the amount of vaccines that we got. We procured enough vaccine to be able to get the kind of results we're getting. All they need to do now is just manage. That's all they need to do. We left it all in place for them. An entire budget, an entire plan, and the elements of that plan in place.
Over the last year, the country has reported more than 22,000 positive COVID-19 cases. Free National Movement's Member of Parliament for Central Grand Bahama, Iram Lewis, is confident heading into the party's upcoming one-day convention. The former Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture and one of 3 Grand Bahama MPs to hold his seat in Parliament officially announced last Wednesday that he intends to throw his hat in the leadership race, which will be held on November 27th. On Sunday, Mr. Lewis was asked by JCN News what he's prepared to bring to the table as leader. He says this.
Yeah, we do have to rebuild, re-energize, and restore our party. And being a problem solver, being an architect, being a planner, I do believe that I bring something to the table to help with the restoration and the re-energization of our party. Going back to our core principles, our founding fathers are still here, but of course we have to rebound, we have to rebuild, reach out to our base, encourage them to come back home.
The Central Grand Bahama MP is serving his second term as the representative for the area. He previously also served as the Minister of State for the newly formed Disaster Preparedness, Management and Reconstruction. Mr. Lewis contends that the party must listen to different branches of the party, such as the Women's Association and Torchbearers Youth Association. Here's what he has to say to the critics.
Guys, you cannot blame anybody for their opinion. And that's all. That's to make the country a great country, our democracy. You can speak your mind, say whatever you but just say it with respect. Of course, sometimes people criticize you, it motivates you. So those who want to criticize, I respect their position, but that's not going to discourage me from doing what I feel is best for the FNM and for the country.
Meantime, MP for Marcos City, Michael Pintard, told reporters he has no comments as it relates to whether he will run for leader. As for Kwesi Thompson, MP for East Grand Bahama, says he'll make an announcement in the coming days. Nominations for the leadership role in the FNM take place until November 18th. 2 members of the party must nominate a candidate for leader before 5 p.m. on that day. A group of women, small in numbers but bearing a powerful message on Saturday, came together in Rawson Square to protest the mistreatment of patients at the Princess Margaret Hospital's maternity ward. Our Laurentia Smith was at the protest and filed this report.
Members of the returning Fundamental Rights Back to Women organization branded signs that read "Public Health" and not "Public Death." Remember the blood you spill and give us proper facilities, please. They're speaking up in wake of the numerous claims of the mistreatment of patients at the Princess Margaret Hospital maternity ward. Some even being left with traumatizing news that their newborn baby have passed away. Our news team caught up with the organization's founder, Patrice Hanna-Carey, who says that it's been a long time coming.
Lives are being lost. Infants' deaths are on the rise. Mothers are now traumatized to the greatest extent. People are afraid to go in to have their own baby. How does that work? This is, if not the time now, such a time to stand up. We cannot have this fear rampant in our culture, in our society. We also cannot have these mothers who are average, ordinary women feeling this way as if their cries will go unheard, and this has been going on for so long.
Now, the Minister of Health, Dr. Michael Dowell, is set to speak on a myriad of issues taking place in the country's healthcare system. Government Press Secretary Clint Watson, also telling Love 97 News, asked to address the minister directly with her concerns. Mrs. Carey says this.
What we are looking forward to now is to hear not only your response, but to see actual results. We are waiting to see the facilities that will be built to accommodate us. We are waiting to see how you then in turn address it at the PMH. We are waiting to see you alleviate the tension and the burden at this point that is the rest that is on both mother, infant, and staff, whomever they may be. We are looking for you to take this office on, take the bull by the horns, and give us results.
Now, on Friday, the public health authorities issued a statement outlining protocols put in place to deal with related to poor care or neglect, one of them being an initial counseling session with the clients by the physician team. A second, more formal counseling session may occur if necessary, conducted by the senior physician or consulate with the clients and family members. We asked 22-year-old Destiny Monroe, who just lost her baby to a severe case of jaundice, if she's been extended those counseling services by the hospital. She says this.
Nobody had reached out, nobody had called. Nobody reached out, nobody called, nobody sent a message. Nobody, nothing. But yet they could post a notice on Facebook after my story went viral and on the news. The person, from you saw my story, you already knew who I was. You should have answered, or you should have called and say something. You shouldn't just wait. When you see my story on the news or all over Facebook to post a notice, who you posting a notice for? You supposed to notice for me to what, come and go to God when I had baby in Princess Margaret Hospital? No.
Mrs. Monroe's case is one of many surfacing over the past few months. In light of this, the PHA announced that it's also implementing an initial inquiry process to identify deficiencies in delivery of care to its clients, including the overall management of the maternity ward and the neonatal intensive care unit. I'm Laurentia Smith for JCN News.
You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.